Hey, welcome back. It's a Money Monday indeed on Liquid Lunch. I'm John Tobacco. We're coming to you from the Liquid Lunch studios in downtown Manhattan. Yes, we are still on Broadway, believe it or not. And we got all this impeachment noise. Today we have the breaking news on the Inspector General's report and Attorney General Bill Barr's thoughts on the summary, and we'll cover all that a little later on in the show. But one of my favorites joins us now. It's Col Daniel Davis. Has been with us many times on the show, and at this point today, with this story about Afghanistan and how our government administrations have been misleading us for years, this guy was prophetic. He's been saying it for a long time. Col Davis, thanks so much for joining us today on Liquid Lunch again.
Hey, thanks for having me out here. I really appreciate it.
So, Colonel, we will love having you on because you were there. You know exactly how our soldiers in the field are feeling. You know exactly what's happening on the administration side. What is this, with all this impeachment talk and IG talk? I don't want this story to get buried. What does this really mean? What do Americans need to know?
Yeah, and I'm grateful you guys are giving this coverage because it's so easy to be swamped by all those other really important things that are going on, too. But this is about life and death for American service members. And the fact is, the unequivocal fact is, American troops have been dying for many years for no gain to our country. And that war should have been wrapped up many, many years ago. And the key thing that this Washington Post expose reveals is that people at the highest levels have known this throughout. And this is not just a Republican-Democrat issue. This is the last three consecutive administrations, and we're talking the senior administration officials, senior military officials, and lots of people down all the way through ambassadors, plenty of people, and they've all known what the reality was, and yet no one had the moral courage to end the war when we needed to do it, and people's lives have been lost as a result.
I know you were critical of some of our foreign policy. You thought that we shouldn't leave any troops behind in Syria. I think you don't think we should leave any troops behind in Afghanistan, but there's this talk out of the White House in D.C. that the president is thinking about engaging in peace talks with the Taliban. Is this going to do us any good?
No, it's not, and I've been very outspoken on this as well. And in fact, if you look at the information out just within the last few hours out of Afghanistan, it underscores why that is. Because it's saying that the Taliban are saying, okay, we'll only do a ceasefire on these conditions, things that favor them, and they're not even willing to talk yet to the Afghan government. And until you do that, there's not even the possibility. So we should not predicate our continued performance in a war that can't be won on the Taliban, who are in a position of tactical strength. We need to say we're going to get out on terms of our choosing at a time that, in a way that we want to protect our interests and the blood of our troops. That's what should happen.
All right, Colonel, first of all, thank you again for joining us. And again, this is a tremendous piece of reporting by the Washington Post, and I commend them for publishing this. And they have a lot of great quotes here and a lot of great insight. And it's very interesting to me that after three successive administrations and top Pentagon officials in all those administrations have been lying to the public about every aspect of this, that no one's being impeached for this. But just out of curiosity, did anybody speak to you for this report?
No, they didn't. I was caught unawares this morning, like most everybody else was.
And for people that don't know, you served in Afghanistan a number of times and were very vocal on the record about the United States mission there. Now, let me read you this quote from Donald Rumsfeld from back in 2003. At the time, he was the Secretary of Defense. He said, "I have no visibility into who the bad guys are." Now, to me, that's pretty interesting. 16 years ago, in a war that we're still fighting, he was pretty much admitting that the most basic details of this conflict were a total mystery to him, despite telling the public the exact opposite. That's pretty alarming, isn't it, Colonel?
Well, yeah, and you really did zero in on one of the key points of that whole very, very revealing expose. But what Rumsfeld had said at the 6-month mark was almost as important, where he was saying to Douglas Feith in an internal memo that, hey, we've got to find something that is sustainable here, or we'll have no way to win militarily. So he knew that at the 6-month mark. Then at the almost 2-year mark that you just talked about there, he's saying we don't even know who the enemy is. Ergo, there's no way that you can set an attainable military objective if you don't know who the enemy is and you don't even know what you're trying to achieve to leave. That's when we should have started getting ready to wrap things up. And instead, nobody has been willing to take the high road to the morally right thing.
One other aspect to this that I find very alarming, and I'd love to get you to weigh in on. According to this new Washington Post report, again, Washington Post is not exactly considered a right-wing media outlet. An unnamed senior National Security Council official said, quote, metrics were always manipulated to falsely show that the Afghanistan surge under Obama in 2009 to 2011 was working. I'd be curious what Vice President Biden has to say about statistics being manipulated to make it look like we're winning a war that we're losing.
Yeah, I mean, who knows whether he personally had any knowledge of that, but I can assure you I did. I was on the ground during that exact time, and I knew for a fact that those things were being manipulated, and I was very vocal about saying so, and it's just, I regret that it's taken 8 years for this to blow up, and I just pray that it's enough now so that people finally say, we're not going to sacrifice any more American troops for something that shouldn't even be fought. So I hope that happens.
Well, let's hope this great expose and your continued commentary calling out the facts can help us along into picking up stakes and getting ourselves out of a country that no one's ever been able to win in.
Right.
Colonel Davis, thank you so much for your service to our country, fighting for our freedoms and liberties, and thank you for always making time for us on Liquid Lunch. We really appreciate it, Colonel.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So, Frankie, Colonel Davis, I mean, this is a real rubber meets the road guy. He was there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In Afghanistan.
Decorated veteran, combat veteran, 4 combat deployments, two of which were in Afghanistan.
To me, that's breaking news that he says he knew that we were manipulating the stats. He made some noise about it, and everybody in the Obama administration didn't want to hear about it. They wanted to feed us some rosy news, while right here on the home front they were feeding us some rosy news about how there are all these little green shoots in the economy. Those green shoots never popped up under Obama.
By the way, speaking of the economy, would give thoughts and prayers to former Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker, who passed away this morning at the age of 92. Probably the last decent Federal Reserve Chairman we have, and somebody that helped us break the back of inflation in the late 70s and early 80s.
Certainly a legend and an icon, and God bless him, Paul Volcker. God bless you for sitting through almost 2 hours of Liquid Lunch, but do not go anywhere. Coming up next, Chase Becker is going to join us. He's the CEO and founder of Metropolitan Magazine, and he's doing a whole bunch of other great things I want to tell you about right after this.